The astral is part of relative plane, the plane of manifestation, but it's a more subtle plane, which is not perceivable by physical senses. We have physical senses made for the physical world, and we have astral senses made for the astral world. And often people are more identified to their physical senses, so they won't see what happens in the astral, because their attention is focused on what the physical eyes are seeing. There are a few people, though. There's always exceptions. Therefore, there are few people who will be born with the ability to see the astral plane, to see what we call entities, so beings living at the astral level. But it's just part of the manifestation, even though it's more subtle. It's also here to lead us to realize our true nature, keeping in mind that we were talking about incarnation earlier. It's truly only like passing from one room to another. It's truly how it goes. When the physical body shuts down, we pass into the astral body that will, actually, the astral body will rather leave the physical body, the same way we let go of a piece of clothing, as Krishna puts it, and we'll find ourselves in the astral plane on what we call the plane to which we belong, which corresponds, to put it simply, to how we love. That's it, yeah, to how we love. Our comprehension of love, let's put it that way. And then we come back into a new physical body, like a vehicle, and that's how it goes, again and again. The astral is not preventing realization. On the contrary, it's just that sometimes there can be a bit of an over-focus. Yeah, for some people, it's putting it mildly. It's something. In the astral, things are experienced differently, meaning that it often exacerbates one's sensibility and or earnestness, okay? First of all, there's no physical body, so sensations and perceptions are experienced entirely differently from when you're back in your physical body. It's really different. It's really not the same, and that can end up being something rather seducing. It's riveting. It fascinates, and many people are evolving around the astral, and there's a lot of them. I met and I know a great deal of them, and I'm not talking about all of them, obviously. I mean, there's a certain degree of discernment involved too, but still a lot of them, at some point or another, go through the obsessive aspect of it. There's a focusing on it. And you drift away. You only think about astral, you're completely absorbed in it. You see entities everywhere. It creates a plane where you're not entirely in your own physical body anymore on a daily basis. We're very often on the other side because we are totally obsessed with it. So a certain vigilance is required on that front because it can become obsessive and fascinating. So it's important to be careful. It's not an end in itself. It's simply one of the infinite number of planes which appear within the globality of the Absolute and which allow and contribute, like everything else, to the realization of the self. But it stops there. That's how it should be perceived. We do experience it, but all those experiences only, quote-unquote, broaden the comprehension of the self. But that's it. Experiences can happen or not. It doesn't prevent enlightenment, but what will usually happen, what happens very often when we get through experiences with the astral, is that the ego will grab onto the idea that you're living something that most people don't, in order to feed the sense of separation and claim that I'm living that and you're not, meaning I'm superior. And that's where we get caught by it, in a sense of superiority. We fall quite hard for it. All abilities that we call psychic or spiritual abilities can, not 100% of the time, but can lead to a strengthening of a sense of separation, and therefore strengthen the ego, because the ego is mainly based on a sense of separation. It's the cornerstone of the ego, absolutely. That's the foundation of it, yes, to feel separate. If there's only one, there can be an ego. That's not possible. So experimenting with subtle plane is absolutely fine. I went through it myself, so did Pierre. We've experimented a lot, speaking of which, there's more than the astral. There's the mental plane, the causal plane, where all causalities happen, etc. It's all very nice, we experiment and all, but it's also important to have some discernment, to be able to keep some distance too. It's important to avoid maintaining ourselves in it, because you can end up being stuck. And as Pierre was saying, we met people working a lot with the astral, and some were convinced that any kind of comprehension had to happen through the astral, as well as any realization, and that's wrong. It's not bound to it at all, especially if we are convinced that this is enlightenment, which can be the case for some people. So there's a need for certain vigilance. And this vigilance is acquired as we go along all sorts of experiences. But inevitably, we all have a subtle astral envelope. Some people even call it the dream body. And may we be conscious of it or not, we all play with it at some point or another. We all play with it.